Hi, I'm Mag Ruffman. Let me introduce you to the wide world of caulk. Then we'll caulk outside around a window and inside around a door. It's good to stroll around your house sometimes looking for all the little places that you might have neglected, all the little uncaulked spots that are in need of your attention. Now there are so many kinds of caulking that it's almost dizzying when you go to the hardware store, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about caulking today so that you're not mystified. Now this is your latex paintable caulk. This goes on the inside of your house, although they're starting to make it now for outside too. This is great stuff. It lasts from 2 to 10 years. It's clean-upable with water, and it's good for filling little cracks like 1/4 of an inch or less, because it's not that flexible. Latex. Latex is our friend. Now over here we have acrylic. Acrylic also is a fine caulking. It lasts from 8 to 10 years, so that's good. It cleans up with water. It's not usually paintable, but it comes in lots of different colors. It doesn't stink, it's not a smelly one, and it fills gaps of up to 1/2 inch. It's more flexible. This is good. Acrylic. Now then there's this other kind of, now let's not be derogatory, it's very cheap. It's good in that way. It's oil-based caulking. It lasts, up to 2 years if you're lucky. It tends to stink, shrink, cake, fall out, shrivel, and die. Plus, you have the added advantage of the fact that it leaks oily surfactants all over other surfaces. So you'll never forget that you did that job with oil-based caulking. And never forget that I told you about that. Okay, now over here we have your butyl rubber caulking. And even just for the name, it's worth wanting to use, don't you think? This baby will last 3 to 10 years. It doesn't stink too badly. It's great for use around moist surfaces, moist areas like gutters and downspouts, maybe on the roof. And it cleans up pretty well. It also isn't very paintable, so it comes in lots of colors, which is good because it's fun to pick the colors. Okay, then there is your elastomeric caulking. Now, nobody is ever going to call caulking elastomeric caulking. You don't go into your hardware store and say to the girl or the guy, "I'd like some elastomeric caulking, please," because they'll just know like you're a newbie. Okay, so this is just a tip. What elastomeric caulkings are hybrids of acrylic, latex, polyurethane, even silicone they throw in sometimes. So you got to read the labels carefully because sometimes they're paintable and sometimes they're not. They do, however, last from 12 to 20 years. These babies go forever. They're very elastic, that's hence the name elastomeric, so you can fill really larger cracks with stuff like this. Okay, now there are many caulks to choose from, and that's just one of the things a girl has to face in looking at the big wide world. So read the labels carefully. And now that you know just a little bit, and a little bit of knowledge, of course, is a dangerous thing, let's go caulk something. Now, after all that talk about caulk, what I didn't tell you is the tricky part, which is that half the time it doesn't even say on the caulking tube what kind it is. So learn to read your label, or just ask your hardware supply person which one would be appropriate for your use. Now, before you ever start caulking outside, you should take a wire brush and clean up the joint that you're going to be working on, because it'll be full of dust and grime and various oils from various agricultural byproducts. That trees, for example, are always spewing pollen and stuff. So what I'm going to do is take a wire brush and comb out the joint. Hi! Just caulking today. When you do this kind of work outside your home, your neighbors will see what you're doing and they'll come over and ask questions. It provides needed breaks, and they might get inspired and caulk their homes too. The world needs more caulk, really. Well, if you're getting it in your mouth, you're probably going to get it in your eyes too, so this is a good reminder to wear your safety eyewear. Much better. While you're preparing to caulk, you should check out the sills of your windows and doors, because this one is needing paint really badly, and it will soak up water like a sponge during the wet season. So I'm just going to brush it around a bit. All right, so once you've done the heavy-duty wire brushing, get a softer bristle brush and just get rid of the dust. Okay, now we're ready to get to the good stuff. Today, this is a really cool caulking gun. What this does is it takes a tube of caulking and basically feeds the this little plate in the bottom of the tube. It keeps pressure on it so that caulking comes out at a nice even flow. So I'm going to load it in my gun eventually, but first I'm going to cut off the tip. It's really easy to cut the hole too big the first time when you nip off the tip of the caulking, so be conservative, because you can always make a bigger hole, but if it's flowing out like Vesuvius, you won't be happy. Now, this hole is maybe a little too conservative, because after all, this is outdoor caulking, and our main goal is coverage, not like really trim, pretty little lines. So I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. And you want the 45-degree angle so that if you just cut it off straight, it'll come out like a big flowing river and give you no precision at all. Okay, I'm done with my glasses now because I'm through the chips and flying debris. Some guns have this cool little wire attachment. Right now there's a membrane in the tube between the nozzle and the caulking itself. So we need to poke a hole in the membrane. If you don't have one of these attachments, you can just use a nail or a piece of wire, and make sure you pierce it a few times so that there's lots of opportunity for the caulking to get out of that little hole. Oops, latex glove time. There we go. Now, get comfortable, because you'll have better leverage if you're not fighting for balance and comfort. These teeth in the arm of the caulking gun need to be turned down if your caulking gun has teeth on it, so that the little lip can catch it and keep forcing that plate forward. So now I'm just going to prime the gun by getting a little drop to appear on the surface of the nozzle here. There it comes. Okay, we're caulking. So, if you're not sure of your skills, start somewhere where nobody can see, like maybe in a joint that's invisible to the bare naked eye. Otherwise, I'm going to get my bead going, and I'm going to have to keep the caulking tube moving. See that action? Well, that's what you do. Very nice. That's what you do when it just keeps coming. You see that? That's really something. It's sort of a sculpture, really. You see what this caulking gun is not the dripless variety of caulking gun. You can get the dripless kind kind that won't keep poking the stuff up at you. I'm going to get a rag out of my special bucket here and just wipe up that little mess, just like having a toddler, really. Now you'll notice that as I went down, I got to a sort of a big hole in the trim, and I had to wait while that hole filled up with caulking. Then I could keep moving again. And that deft little wrist turn at the end is just to end the flow of caulking so you don't drag it across the trim as you come away to start before you start a new bead. So I'm now going to start a new bead. I'm going to overlap the old one a little bit. All right, now the gap is getting huge down here, so I'm going to have to take a couple of passes at it because it's really important to get the caulking to the bottom of the crevice as well as adhering it to both sides of the joint. So I'm going to turn the gun upside down. Wahoo! Had a hanger there. I just remembered something about this gun. I can take the pressure off it by disengaging the teeth. So if you have this kind of gun, just turn it quickly if you don't want that runny nose effect. It takes about half a tube per window, so make sure you lay in a good supply of caulking before you start a big job. Now once you've laid a nice bead of caulking down the joint, dip your gloved finger in some soapy water, and you just want to smooth and press the caulking at the same time. So I've got small fingers, so I like to turn my hand on a bit of an angle so I can get a broader surface. And you just want to smear it while pushing it in. Take the caulking off your finger quite frequently, otherwise you just end up making a very, very widespread mess. So really you can only get about 3 inches at a time if you've applied a generous bead. Have to keep wiping your finger off. And what you're after is just making the seal as tight as possible. It's going to look butt ugly, and that's because it's going to be painted over. So it can look as messy as possible right now. Think finger painting. If you live in a house and you're trying to do your caulking outside, and the last person who did it did a rotten job, just do your best. Once the caulking is adhered, it's really hard to pull it off. So you'll just get frustrated if you try to start over again over somebody's rotten job. There we go. Now, this next joint that we have to caulk is a good example of two different materials. We have masonry here and then wood trim here. So make sure that you check the label on your caulking tube and make sure that it will adhere to both surfaces. This one does, I checked. Now, you know, sometimes you'll see a situation where you could just stand here for about 2 hours and keep feeding caulking into a gap. Don't panic. Just get as much as you can in so that there's something to a base, and then go over it as long as it's meeting the sides. Don't be afraid to be really generous with the amount of caulking you use when doing exterior caulking. A 1/8 inch gap around a couple of doors or windows is equivalent to leaving a small window open 6 inches for the entire winter. So what you'll save on your heating bill in one winter is worth the price of the caulk. So caulk on. In the world, there are about 1 million kinds of caulking. So when you go to the hardware store to pick up your caulking, don't be dismayed when you see there are racks and racks of the stuff. Just get one that's interior, that will take paint, and that can be put on, that can be painted over in about an hour. My caulking gun, my caulk, a wet rag, well, it's damp, not really wet, and some latex gloves. Just as caulking sticks to carpet, it gets under your nails. It looks like a French manicure treatment for a while, maybe a day. Then it goes gray and gets sullied with life, and after that, you don't want it there anymore, but it won't come out. So wear the gloves. Now, I'm going to load the caulking in my gun, but first I want to cut the top off the nozzle. You see, the whole point of caulking is to fill cracks and gaps, but on the inside of a house, the cracks and gaps are pretty narrow. They're usually about 1/8 of an inch. So you want to cut, when you cut the nozzle, you just want a very concise little opening. You don't want a huge opening that will spew caulking out, and it will come out really unevenly, and it will look like a python that has swallowed a donkey instead of a nice narrow string of caulking. So here I go. I'm even going to cut this high up, and if I don't even, there, oh, so pretty. I've got a tiny little bead here, or a tiny opening, which will give me a very thin bead of caulk. I don't know why they call it a bead. I don't know. I think that word was stolen from us women, but in fact, this stuff would look like hell as a necklace, and I just don't know why they used that word. So, all right, so part of the trouble is that I left caulking on the wire from the last tube I opened. There we go. So that pierces it. Now, if you just pierce it once, you won't have much caulking flowing into the nozzle, so you have to go at it a couple of times. There we go. Put the wire away. And this caulking gun has an arm that has teeth on it. When I turn the teeth down, the trigger engages, and then the plate pushes on the bottom of the tube, which starts the flow of caulking coming out the nozzle. I just hold it up like a doctor until it starts to come, and there it comes there. Lovely, attractive looking stuff. You should try to pick a caulking that matches. I mean, if your room is a dark color, pick an interior color of caulking that's dark. So I'll get started up here. And just apply a steady, continuous bead, and use your knees and your thighs and all your lower body parts to make a nice smooth track down the door. And when you've come to the end of your trigger, you just release, and with this gun you have to turn the teeth up or it keeps pushing. So you can see this looks really pretty. It's already tidied up the look of this door a lot. So I'm just going to wet, whoops, that's not my wet rag, that's my dry rag. I'm going to wet my index finger with this nice wet rag, and when I have a fair amount of moisture on the end of my fingertip, I'm going to take my finger and just run it down to smooth it. Now, pull your finger away fairly frequently, because otherwise you just end up with a whole mess of caulking on your fingertip like a snow plow, and you just spread it around. It just looks so much better already, not having those gaps. Ooh. Okay, so now I'm ready to start caulking again because I've applied my first bead. If you don't trust your hand, if you're just new at this, start maybe along the top of the door trim so that you get a bit of practice before you get to the visible parts where everybody's going to be able to see it. This is actually really fun. Caulking is fun. And once you know how to handle your caulk, you're home free. So many things are damp where they're not meant to be. When I dry my salad greens, I don't put them in a salad spinner. I use a blow dryer set on cool. If I'm trying to impress a special guest, I might even style the lettuce a little. You know, well-styled bit of lettuce just lends an air of luxury and elegance to any occasion. Whether you're fixing a wall or fixing a meal, make sure everything you do is both creative and alluring. Until next time on A Repair to Remember, I'm Mag Ruffman.